All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're rolling up on 3:30 here, so I'd like to start by thanking everybody for coming out today. We may have a few more people who roll in as the presentation goes on, but we will um, allow them to trickle in as they get here. I'd like to start off by, again, thanking you all for coming out and seeing if we have any questions right off the bat. I'm sure a lot of you went out to the Corps of Cadets info session earlier this morning. So if that raised any questions that you'd like to get started, we'll kind of take those now. You can throw them in the question and answer, or you can raise your hand and we'll turn on the audio for you. My name is Cadet Captain Ryan Grannon. I'm a senior in the Citizen Leader track this year. I'm majoring in politics, philosophy, and economics, and my co-host today is Cadet Bethke, who will now introduce himself.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Cadet Brian Bethke. I'm the battalion commander for the Citizen Leader track. I'm also a senior. I'll be graduating this semester. I'm a business management major. I've been in the Citizen Leader track since I joined the Corps my freshman year.
All right, so again, anybody who's trickling in, if you have any questions that come up, feel free to put them in the question and answer box. Otherwise, we're going to get started kind of going through a presentation that we've got here. So today we're going to be talking about the Citizen Leader track in the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets. As I'm sure if you went to the Corps of Cadets info session, you already know, the Corps and these ROTCs are separate organizations. If you are in an ROTC, you have to be in the Corps, but you don't have to be in an ROTC to be in the Corps. So the Citizen Leader track is basically where we put everybody who joins the Corps without also being in an ROTC program. Now, there's a number of reasons that you might want to do this. A lot of people do it for the leadership experience. It really puts you ahead when you're going out to go into the professional sector. A lot of people who want to join federal agencies or join law enforcement also find the Citizen Leader track in the Corps of Cadets to be a really big boost. There are also people, of course, who wind up getting medically disqualified from their ROTC, and they will usually transfer into the Corps of Cadets to finish out their time because, you know, they love it out here with the leadership experience and everything that goes on there. So our vision essentially is to create highly sought citizen leaders with character, confidence, and wellness to lead successful lives in service to others. And that means that our specific mission is to create a structured program that graduates principled citizen leaders designed for careers in the public and private sectors. So like I was saying, a lot of people go into government jobs, but a lot of people also go work for your Fortune 500 type companies or a variety of nonprofits, charities, that type of stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about some of our, some stories from people who are in the Corps towards the end of the presentation. So the Corps itself is organized into 3 battalions with 4 companies each that all fall under the regiment. And the ROTCs all kind of intermix with those core structures. And everybody who's not in an ROTC is in the Citizen Leader track. So there we are, just right with everybody else. The Citizen Leader track specifically is divided into 3 groups. VP and I company. That's VPI stands for Virginia Polytechnic Institute, which was the first name of the organization. And that is actually split up. We've actually changed it from seniors. I'm sorry, the slide is a little bit out of date, but this year we are doing it by major groups. So V company is still engineering and science majors. P company is kind of all of your science but not engineering majors, I think, and I company is everybody else. So in the citizen leader track, in order to fulfill our mission, we focus mainly on three parts: fitness, career coaching, and employer outreach. We like to put an emphasis on kind of developing habits that'll carry you forward for the rest of your life. We PT 2 to 3 times a week, unless you score extremely high on the PT test, in which case we trust you to develop your own physical fitness training schedule, and you're only required to come 1 time a week. We also, this gives a lot of opportunities for peer leadership as well, and kind of character development out there through the physical training program. We usually split that up, alternating between cardio workouts and strength training, kind of calisthenic-based strength training specifically. Now, we also have a class that we all attend in the Citizen Leader track, and that focuses a lot on career coaching. Now, you can get that from your other cadets, but you also get that from the staff within VPI, as well as larger university staff. We'll have people from the Career Center come in and talk to us about interviews and resumes. We write a lot of resumes and review them with each other. One of the big things that we do every year is called the JobX training program, where the juniors create a company kind of with the guidance of a senior, and they create essentially fictional companies with positions that the sophomores and freshmen then apply to. Basically, they then go through and they conduct interviews of all the freshmen and sophomores in order to, basically go through a whole job selection process. Now, not only does this give a lot of opportunities for freshmen and sophomores who maybe don't have as much experience going into job interviews to get some of that in a kind of practice and training environment, it also, I really think, helps the juniors and the seniors really understand what it looks like from the other side of the table during those job interviews, right? It really helps you learn what an interviewer is looking for when you have to be the interviewer. Last but not least is the employer outreach. The Hokie Nation has a massive network of alumni, as well as various recruiting contacts in a wide variety of organizations and businesses, and the Citizen Leader Track staff out here will help you get in contact with people in your field who can then go through and kind of talk to you a little bit about what you're going through and trying to do to get into that field, what it's like to work at their company, and of course eventually most jobs are found through networking, so it really helps you develop that network to help you get placed into jobs upon graduation. Right, so this is a little bit more specific to the freshman class specifically. It's a 2 credit hour class, A through F curriculum, and it does count towards the core leadership minor. We have everything from lectures, panels, team building activities, so it's not always in the classroom. Sometimes we'll go out and we'll do team building activity type stuff. I was kind of going over a lot of this a little earlier, but we have specific trainings on everything from etiquette to public speaking to financial planning for personal finance, as well as career transition type stuff. So, right, this is what a job market typically looks like, and the thing you need to do is stand out. And if you're walking up there and you know your stuff, you're in the Corps of Cadets, it's really going to help you stand out amongst the crowd. 70% of our graduates have jobs or grad school far before they graduate. Now, you may wonder why it's only 70%. That's because a lot of people take a fifth year to finish their degrees out here at Tech, especially if you're in engineering. You know, it's a very demanding major. So there's a variety of reasons that you might need to take a fifth year. Many people are also in the process of pursuing federal employment, right? So you've got background checks or additional training that you have to do after graduation sometimes. A lot of people also apply to OCS type programs. So as far as I've got a question in the Q&A here, would citizen leader track still be a good thing to pursue if I'm interested in majoring in childhood pre-education and becoming a teacher post-college? So I think that the Corps of Cadets is still going to be a fairly good option for you, mainly because it's going to teach you a lot about leadership that you can transfer then into leading your classroom upon graduation. But I won't lie, it is going to be hard, especially because a lot of teaching programs roll in a master's in education along with them, or you pursue a master's in education afterwards. Now, that's not necessary all of the time, but it is something to think about if that's something you're interested in, right? Especially senior year, you might be taking some master's classes at the same time as being in the Corps of Cadets. Teachers programs also a lot of the time have accreditation programs that you do alongside the degree. That's also going to take up more time from your day. Now, again, it's not like it's impossible or even difficult, but it is going to be an additional time constraint. So the question you need to ask yourself is the leadership experience and the camaraderie and the transition kind of training to transition from high school into college, you know, is that going to be worth the trade-off of having a little bit less time, you know, to do other things? You know, training, it's the same as anything else. Essentially, think of it like a leadership minor. It's a 24/7 leadership laboratory, right? So it just takes a little bit extra time for a lot, in my opinion, of extra benefit and training.
Yeah, and I can touch on this topic real quick too. So we've had multiple people. Last year we had someone get accepted into the Virginia Tech Master's program for education. And it's not just leadership that you're learning here, you're also learning personal skills. You're learning how to deal with other people. And we're such a diverse group of people that those skills that you don't always gain in the classroom, you're gaining through the Corps here and through the Citizen Leader Track. And we've put plenty of people into the education system, and I mean, it's a great field to go into, and I wouldn't just be deterred just because this seems like a military kind of organization. It's great for any kind of job field.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like he was saying, you're going to learn a lot of soft skills that you won't get anywhere else, especially learning how to operate within a larger organization, which will be very important as you're moving into, you know, kind of one of the largest organizations, education that there is. So anyway, moving on, we basically have 90% by the end of the summer following their senior year, either employed or accepted into like OCS or a PhD program or master's program. So here are some companies you see kind of on the more private side of things that we have a lot of grads going into. Everybody from Northrop Grumman to IBM. That's sorry about that. We also have a lot of your alphabet soup agencies. You know, you want to go work for the FBI, the CIA. You know, there are a lot of civilian positions within the Department of Defense as well, especially surrounding research and that type of thing. You know, this is really going to help get you networking and, you know, understanding how a lot of those types of organizations work. Then we also have, again, some more kind of private companies, a little bit less in the defense industry. Your targets, your Fortune 500s, you know how it goes. And then we also have a lot of nonprofits, whether it's Teach for America, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the Boy Scouts, that people are moving into as well after graduation. So as far as the average day for somebody in the citizen leader track goes, that's going to kind of depend on whether it is a PT day, a physical training, or a non-PT day. You wake up, PT starts around 5:30 in the morning. You will get back to your room around 6:30, shower, clean up the room, and then you'll head out to formation between at pretty much 7:30. 7:30 is when the flag goes up. From 7:30 to 1700, right? The day is essentially yours to do as you choose. Whether that is studying, going out and participating in on-campus activities, or what have you. From 1700 to 1900, that's usually core time, especially kind of freshman year, right? You're going to be going over to company athletics, which is where all the different companies in the Corps go out and compete in various sporting games. We don't really have that this semester due to coronavirus and social distancing concerns, but that is typically something that we do. You might also have some training, especially on Fridays. It's also one of the best times to get your meal because between 1900 and 2300, that's 7 and 11 p.m., we have mandatory study hours for freshmen. Sophomores, it starts a little later at 2100, and then by junior and senior year, we trust that you have taken the time management skills that we've taught you to heart and you know how to handle that for yourself. Lights out is at 2300, that's 11 p.m. But if you need to take early lights to go to bed a little earlier, or late lights to stay up working on a project, you just have to pass that up your chain of command beforehand so that we know, that you're keeping track of everything that you need to. So we'll talk a little bit about some people who went through the Corps in the Citizen Leader Track program. Christine Mapilli, class of 2016, was a civil engineer and a 21st century studies minor. They took a lot of different opportunities to go work with internships over the summers. Summer of 2014, they went to Sri Lanka, Turkey, Morocco, kind of on a study abroad type thing. The fall of 2014, they served as cadre, which is training staff for the Corps of Cadets, specifically outside of ROTCs, for Foxtrot Company. The spring of 2015, they were a first sergeant, company first sergeant. So they were in charge, they were the junior who was taking charge of their company that year, or that semester rather. In the summer of 2015, they did undergraduate research, and in 2016, they were on the team that investigated the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, if you remember that. Now, their goal, which they eventually did get into, was to join the Peace Corps and get a PhD in, kind of studying water resources across the globe. This is Michael Shoka, class of 2017, a math major. He was in the honors program out here. He had a 3.99 GPA, a perfect PT score, was on color guard, was an Eagle Scout before he came in. He won Eager Squad, which was, it is a group precision rifle drill competition. They also served as the first sergeant of their company during their junior year, and they had 2 federal internships during their time out here. This is Peter Wilson, class of 2017. finance major. They joined the Bond and Securities Investigating by Students, which is called BASIS. It is a student organization here on campus that does a lot of really good work kind of in the financial sector of things. They were a cadre sergeant, meaning they trained freshmen during their junior year. They also served as the VPI sergeant major, which is the junior in charge of all of everybody in VPI for one semester, as well as the VPI commander, which is in charge of the everybody in the citizen leader track as a senior. They were also a global scholar through the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, which means they went out and there's a whole program that you go on, essentially going over. We can talk a little bit more about that program later. It's pretty interesting. You study some World War II battles, and essentially you become a subject matter expert in one particular part of the Normandy invasion, and then you go deliver a briefing of that on site over the summer. This is Jake McCormick, class of 2017, sociology and criminology double major with a 3.1 GPA. They were able to serve as a cadre sergeant training freshmen, the VPI battalion sergeant major, and both VPI and 2nd Battalion commanders. So they were both in charge of everybody in the 2nd Battalion of the Corps of Cadets one semester, and in charge of everybody in the citizen leader track the other semester. After graduation, they were accepted into Navy OCS and eventually went and commissioned as an officer in the Navy. This is Brandon Ward, class of 2018, biochem major. Their entire time out here, they volunteered with the EMT staff, riding around in the VT ambulance. They had a 3.5 GPA, a perfect PT score, commanded their company. It's typically 90 people, freshman through senior. They were able to participate in a summer academic enrichment program and graduated from that through VCU. They led a chemistry tutor sessions for the Student Success Center out here, and they're now in med school on a Air Force scholarship. Okay, I've got a question in the Q&A box. How much time is there to get involved with other clubs? Also, how intense is PT? If there are club activities during study hours, can you go? So, as a freshman, what it comes down to is your mandatory study hours are for academic time. So, if you are in an academics-focused club, a study group essentially, then you could get permission to go over and do that. But if it's a social gathering, we're really going to want you to focus on academics during that time. Now, again, that is only, however, for freshman year. After that, you are essentially free to join whatever club you want. And a lot of people, as far as I can tell, pretty much everybody out here is part of some student organization on campus, in addition to being in the Corps of Cadets. Now, you've got a lot of time during that 7:30 to 1700 time block where you're able to participate in a lot of different types of student organizations. We've got a lot of people who are also in Greek life, and they do that sophomore year, as soon as they aren't held quite as strictly to those mandatory study hours. As far as how intense PT is as intense as you make it, right? That's always the thing with bodyweight exercises and calisthenics. You're really going to get out what you put in. So we develop training programs that are essentially, scalable, right? So you might do a number of repetitions, but how many sets of that repetition depends on how many. You might say, a set of 20 push-ups, 20 squats, 10 burpees, however many sit-ups, and then you cycle through that as many times as you can in a certain period of time before moving on to the next station, right? So you're going to get in shape, and obviously it's not going to be a cakewalk, but it kind of scales with how much effort you decide to put in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have a very wide variety of physical fitness levels of people that are coming into the Citizen Leader track. We've had people that used to play on their high school football teams to people that have never really worked out in their lives. And we've had people that come here with a single goal of losing weight and getting into shape. And we work with them and we figure out what they need to do to get to that next level, what to achieve their goals. So we're not going to have these lofty expectations that are unreachable for you at the beginning. And the real thing is we just want to see you make progress throughout your time here.
Yeah, that is the most important part with the PT test. It's essentially based off of the Navy standards as far as what's passing, but the most important part is that you're showing improvement between each of your PT tests. So this is Madrid Novak, class of 2018. She majored in Russian. She was a first sergeant in the fall of 2017, as well as the regimental command sergeant major for the Corps, not VPI, in the spring of 2018, as well as the regimental commander in the fall of 2018, which is the senior cadet in charge of the entire Corps of Cadets. They were a Keystone Fellow with a 3.4 GPA and a strong PT score. Now, the interesting part of Miss Novak's story is that she wasn't always in VPI. She got disqualified by Dodd Merb from her ROTC just a couple months before graduation. But with the help of VPI, she basically turned it around and was hired on before graduating from the Corps of Cadets. This is Warren Braxton, class of 2018, building and construction major. He was heavily involved in the Residence Hall Federation out here on campus. Right, that's another non-Corps of Cadets organization that offers a lot of leadership opportunities as far as what goes on in the residence halls. He had a 3.1 GPA, and kind of on the topic of physical training, he wanted to and lost 140 pounds while he was out here. He had 3 internships, 1 per summer that he was out here, and was a member of the Heidi Tidies, which is our regimental band. So again, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that you have. We are here for you, essentially. So while we're waiting for any of those questions to roll in, I'd like to ask Cadet Bethke, what is your favorite part of being in the Citizen Leader track out here in the Corps of Cadets?
So, like I said before, I came in here and I came in directly into the Citizen Leader track. I didn't come in through an ROTC or something like that. And what I really wanted was just that different experience that not every other college student gets. And with the Corps and the Citizen Leader track, you're able to get that training that you don't get with just your average student on campus. I mean, first of all, it's just a community here, so it's a whole different feeling, but also you're having that professionalism training, your leadership training. I'm taking a few leadership training classes right now, and I'm able to, because of my experiences with the Corps, I'm far and above knowledgeable on many of those topics.
I did see one question in the chat. Okay. As far as who I am, again, I'm a senior in the Corps of Cadets, and I am majoring in politics, philosophy, and economics.
And then I'm a senior and I am majoring in management, focusing in consulting and analytics. And then I'm also minoring in leadership studies, which is offered through the Corps of Cadets here.
Would this be a good program for trying to go into SWAT? And I would say yes, in that, right, it's going to give you a lot of the kind of leadership skills that SWAT really values. It's going to give you a lot of the interpersonal skills, again, that SWAT kind of values. It's going to give you kind of a network with a lot of other people who are probably also looking to go. We've got a wide variety of people within the citizen leader track who are looking to go into law enforcement. So you'll be able to get a good network going with them. And it will also help keep you, physically fit in order to kind of pursue that path. As far as the specific requirements for going into SWAT, I'm not entirely sure. But as far as the physical training, as well as a lot of the social training, you're going to get a lot of benefit from being in the Corps of Cadets that I don't think you're really going to be able to get outside of, another program like this.
Yeah, and another thing with law enforcement and the military in general is we have a lot of organizations, whether it be local police units or anything like that. They reach out to us. They're looking for cadets. It's not us trying to be like, hey, we have this cadet, and would you like to take a look at them? They come to us every year asking, who do you have? We have this many slots open, and we would love to have some cadets.
Right. One of the people who I was in a company with freshman year, one of my buds, Jenna Bender, interned pretty extensively with the Virginia Tech Police Department out here. And she got that opportunity because the Virginia Tech Police Department essentially came out to us and was like, hey, we've got some positions open. Who do you know that's interested in doing law enforcement stuff? And she was able to get in with that. What type of opportunities for learning abroad are available? Right. So as far as study abroad opportunities go, there are a lot offered through the university. And you can, if you want to, take a semester to go and do that. There's a kind of approval process through the Corps. And essentially, they put your standing in the Corps of Cadets on pause for a year while you go and do that. At least that's my understanding. Now, there are also opportunities to go do kind of learning abroad over the summer, especially with foreign language programs, right? So you go and you live and work in the country, kind of learn in the country, to really immerse yourself in the language, whether that's COLP or Project Go, and you kind of get some opportunities to go abroad with that as well. And then, of course, there's also, like we were talking about earlier, Project Global Scholar type stuff, and that. Do you have anything to add on that, Becky?
I mean, the main thing is that, like he said, we have plenty of opportunities for you to study abroad if you want to, and you'll have plenty of chances throughout your time here. And just because you're in the Corps of Cadets does not mean you're not allowed to study abroad. Any study abroad opportunity that's offered through the university, you're still able to apply for that. You're able to take a semester or a year off. That's up to you. And you'll be welcomed back into the Corps afterwards. It doesn't affect your standing at all if you decide to study abroad.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go with this question. Are there any scholarships offered by the Citizen Leader track? First, there is an Emerging Leader Scholarship, which is offered by the Corps of Cadets. That's offered to everybody in the Corps of Cadets, though. You automatically apply for that when you apply to be in the Corps. Outside of that, there are some scholarships that are offered as far as that require core standing, but those are often offered to the entire corps as well. Now, additionally, there are a lot of kind of internship programs, right? Like Northrop Grumman does one, Boeing does one, where they will essentially say, we're looking for somebody from the citizen leader track who has X major, and essentially the deal is we're going to pretty much pay for their college, but you have to come work for us every summer, and if we like you, we're going to hire you once you graduate. And there are a number of cadets with opportunities like that. I think Lieutenant Colonel Merriger would like to talk a little bit about that as well. Perhaps? No.
Mr. Grennan, you were asking about the scholarships. Is that where we were?
We're talking about scholarships, yes, ma'am.
So there are some scholarships that are offered by companies that, like you mentioned, I think Northrop Grumman. There's some others that are offered by companies, but they're specific to majors. So that's something that's kind of unique about Citizen Leader Track, is it's not a one-size-fits-all scholarship, because different companies, different categories of companies are applicable. Like you saw when they printed out where the people went to work. Some were working for Alphabet Soup, some were working in private sector, some were working in the public sector. So we have all these different types of students and interests between the companies and the students. And so we actually are working individually with companies about scholarships and trying to find opportunities for students based on who's enrolled and what they're interested in. So it's not a one size fits all like it is with the ROTCs.
Yeah, it's a very good way to put it. Okay, what type of leadership do you learn? Do you get to connect with ROTC? What is the main difference between ROTC and Citizen Leader Track? All right, so the only difference between ROTC and Citizen Leader Track is what PT you do in the morning, what class you go into on Tuesday afternoons, and whether or not you are guaranteed a commission into the military upon graduation, right? In the Citizen Leader Track, you can still go, apply to OCS or any of those types of programs, but you're not committed to going into the military upon graduation. We take classes on Tuesday afternoons that are talking about how to do interviews and write resumes and balance your checkbook. Army is learning how to crawl through the mud. Navy is learning what ships look like. So that's pretty much the difference there. Now, I roomed with I've roomed with a Marine Corps ROTC cadet my freshman year, as well as an Army cadet freshman year, a Navy cadet my sophomore year, and Air Force cadets my senior year. So you really get a lot of mixture between all the different branches, as well as the Citizen Leader Track, as far as residence and housing life. So you definitely connect with ROTC. As far as what type of leadership you learn. So freshman year, we're mainly focused on learning peer leadership, as well as what we would call followership, right? Which is how to support organizational goals and push forward, even if you're not in a position of defined authority, right? As you go into sophomore year, you're mainly focused on small group leadership, leading and teaching one or two cadets, especially that's typically through the fire team leader position, as well as through, in the Citizen Leader Track specifically, all of our squad leaders are sophomores. So they learn to kind of lead their squads at PT in the mornings and take accountability for them and all that type of stuff. As you move into junior year, that's typically large group leadership, your 30 to 90 person level, as far as both in the Corps and in the Citizen Leader Track. This is where you'll be, kind of leading either platoons or companies or squads within either of those organizations. And then senior year, you'll either continue kind of learning about the large group leadership, or you'll also get an opportunity to learn a little bit about organizational leadership if you're in one of these positions like battalion sergeant major or regimental positions, that type of stuff, where you really learn about how to take an organization in the direction that it wants to go. Again, a lot of this learning does come through experience and practical learning as you go through, but there are also a lot of kind of lectures and laboratories that go into this as well. So you'll learn about different types of management styles and leadership styles through that type of stuff as well, to kind of put some words to the concepts that you're already experiencing in your day-to-day life as a member of the Corps of Cadets. All right. Can you talk about the residence halls for the Corps of Cadets, like the location on campus, finding roommates, room styles, etc.? How integrated are you with the rest of campus? Right. So as far as, typically, the Corps of Cadets all lives on Upper Quad, unless we overflow for some reason, like we did this semester, because we're not allowed to use. So there are two types of rooms, 2-person and 3-person rooms. They all have these lofted beds with desks in them. And it just depends on the room size, whether there are 2 or 3 people in it. Now, because of coronavirus this semester, they are not having 3 people in a room. They're only doing 2-person rooms to help prevent spread. So we overflowed where we would typically be able to house everybody. And as a result, some companies are down on lower quad. Now, upper quad is up kind of in the corner of campus above kind of Torgerson Bridge across from the Squire Student Center. A beautiful kind of area, very nice dorms, some of the newest on campus. Lower quad is down a little bit more towards the rest of the on-campus residences. It is right across from Owen's Dining Hall, as well as the mail room, and right next to the gym. Again, generally some fairly nice dorms, not quite as new as the ones in Upper Quad, but still fully functional. And I certainly haven't had any reason to complain too much. I'm currently living in Lower Quad, specifically West Eggleston. As far as how integrated we are with the rest of campus, right? We don't necessarily live right next to everybody else on campus, but we are definitely a minority. As far as especially during classes, and if you're in non-core organizations, chances are 80% of the other people in the room are going to be civilian students. So you'll have a lot of opportunity to interact with them and get to know them, make friends outside of the Corps, and really integrate kind of seamlessly with the rest of campus.
Yeah, and to also continue off that a little bit, so in terms of just housing here, so freshman year, you don't have a choice as to who your roommate is. You'll be assigned roommates, so you don't have to go through that process that most other students have to go through. But also, you'll be assigned your dorm building. So like he said, was that most of you will be on Upper Quad. That's where we try and have all of the cadets at, but due to certain situations because of COVID this semester, we can't fit everyone quite here. But Upper Quad dorms are definitely newer and a lot nicer compared to a lot of the other dorms on campus for civilian students. We have air conditioning, which is not universal throughout all of the dorms here. And we also have things like gym, kitchens, and beautiful little study lounges for everyone. So the dorms here are great in terms of the Upper Quad.
Right, and then of course, after freshman year, you get shuffled into a new company, right? So that kind of helps distribute a lot of the kind of experiences that you get as a freshman. So you take everybody, every company's a little different freshman year. And so we split everybody up to kind of get a wider breadth of knowledge across the Corps. So once you're in your new company, you will be able to choose your roommate. Pretty much all you have to do is let your company commander know, because they're the ones who come up with the room rosters every semester. So if you just let them know, chances are that you will be paired with the roommate of your choice. Obviously, of course, it has to stay in company. Now, we are a little over time, and so I'd like to open up the floor one last time, kind of for questions, anything last minute. Otherwise, I will say that you should feel free, if you come up with anything afterwards, to email us at the Corps. You can find our contact information on the Corps website, vtcc.vt.edu. And our contact information will be on there, and you can email in any questions that you come up with after the presentation is over. You can also email corps, corps at vt.edu directly with any questions that you have, and that will come to us, and we will get on that as quickly as we can for you. So I'm not seeing anything else come in over the Q&A real quick here. So I would really like to thank everybody for coming out, spending this time with us to get to know a little bit more about the Citizen Leader Track within the Corps of Cadets. All right, everybody, I'm going to close out the webinar. I hope you have a wonderful day.